Hello and welcome to the F1 report. Well, wow, what a start, what a finish, what an incredible 51 laps it was at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in a podium that no one could have ever predicted. A beaming Daniel Ricciardo emerged as victor for Red Bull despite starting in 10th, whilst Mercedes' Valtteri Bottas, who was dead last at the first lap, drove impeccably to steal second place from Lance Stroll by 1/10 of a second at the finish. The Williams driver became the youngest ever rookie to secure a podium finish. As we all know, though, the biggest talking point was the double collision between Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. And that caused the biggest stir. So, joining me to digest that race is Sky F1's Mark Priestley, and returning to the show is racing driver Jamie Chadwick. Jamie, welcome back.
Thank you, yeah.
We have got a fair amount to talk about today, but let's talk about you first. What's been happening since we last saw you?
Yes, quite a bit's changed for me. I think last time I was here I was racing in GTs, trying to talk about F1, but now I'm racing in British F3, so made the switch to single-seaters, which I'm really enjoying. Got a podium earlier in the year and a couple of top fives as well, so yeah, really enjoying it, and it means I can sort of watch races like this with big aspirations.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, we'll look forward to hearing more about that later. What about Baku, though? I mean, it was exhausting to watch, let alone to take part in.
Great race.
Best race of the year so far, I'm sure. Best race in recent memory.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it just had everything. It had all the ingredients, didn't it? Everything you want. If you could write the script for a race, that was it. It was perfect.
Driver of the day for you?
Well, officially it was Lance Stroll. I think you've got to say that was a pretty decent drive. He held on under quite extreme pressure. I know he lost right at the very line, he lost second place, but I thought that was a good, solid performance. Valtteri Bottas did very well, given that he made a mistake in the beginning. To come right from the back to claim second, I thought was also a great drive.
And quite amazing that 9 teams were in the points. Could have been 10 if Nico Hülkenberg hadn't had the crash.
Yeah.
Driver of the day for you?
I'd say Daniel Ricciardo. I know it's obvious with the fact he won the race, but definitely some of the moves he did to get back through the field after sort of a bad first lap, I think, were awesome, and yeah, definitely deserves driver of the day.
Good stuff. Well, whether you missed the race or just couldn't take it all in at one time, here's a recap.
Lights out and away we go. Valtteri Bottas pointing towards Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton gets away well though and cuts Bottas off down the inside. Goes Sebastian Vettel, tries to get the car under control and loses out to Kimi Räikkönen, so stays in fourth in the Toro Rosso. Going wide there, and that is Carlos Sainz. Contact there, Kimi Räikkönen. Contact and with Valtteri Bottas, you're right. Oh, not again for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, here we go again.
There is Danny Kvyat, stopped by the side of the track. The safety car is coming out. Safety car's peeling away. And Esteban Ocon's got past Räikkönen, and bits have flown off that front wing. Safety car again. Oh, he went into him.
Right, he brake tested me. Vettel literally just came alongside me and then hit me.
Hamilton then leads them down the straight. The two Force Indians collide there, and there's big damage.
Both damaged.
To Perez, his front wing.
Both damaged.
I got puncture from debris.
Will be red flag. It's true, there is debris everywhere. Safety car restart.
And down the inside goes Daniel Ricciardo. What a move from the Australian. Problem with his headrest.
He got to box next lap.
Vettel has got a 10-second stop-go penalty.
10-second penalty is not enough for driver behaviour like that.
Huge pressure for the teenager in the Williams.
For Daniel Ricciardo, the checkered flag is there. Just on the line, Bottas gets second. Amazing race.
Well, so much to get through. We could start in so many places, but I suppose we should really begin with the spat between Hamilton and Vettel. Have you ever seen anything like this before, Mark?
Not really, no. I mean, no, I haven't. I think it's there's two ways to look at this. It's great for the sport that we've got a bit of needle in the title fight now, haven't we? We've got two of the greatest drivers who've been had a bit of a love-in up to now, haven't they?
I was going to say, we talked earlier about, oh, this is such a respectful relationship.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, right, straight out
That's
the window.
gone out the window, so that's great. I mean, I guess the new commercial rights holders at Liberty will be rubbing their hands together with this, because we're all talking about it and will be for a long time. On the flip side of that, it wasn't a great example, for aspiring racing drivers, but even younger people than you, people in karting who are really looking up to these guys as absolute idols. I don't think that was a great example. It was essentially road rage, and I don't think there's a place for that in Formula One.
Absolutely. Well, let's break it down into two parts. Seb's claim that Hamilton brake tested him, did he?
I think it's hard to tell. I think the FIA proved that with the data that he didn't brake test him. There wasn't a brake trace where, Hamilton deliberately hit the brakes to back Seb up. But at the same time, you did see Lewis slow out of the corner, so whether that was intentional or not, I think the difficulty is, and especially around Baku, where, you know, it's quite tight and twisty, I think Hamilton came round and saw the lights had gone out on the safety car, and Seb came round and wouldn't have seen that, so he would have been keeping it on, we've been trying to get some temp in and would have just hit him. It is quite common in junior Formula, I've known it a lot in what I race in. So I think I was surprised not to see it sort of more often in F1. So it's one of those things that happens. It's safety car, everyone's bunched up, and it's inevitable sometimes.
Guilty or not, though, what he did next is inexcusable, isn't it?
Excuse me. No, absolutely right. I think, you know, you're right. Those things happen behind safety cars. Seb didn't want to lose even a car length before Lewis getting away, but the reaction is the thing. That the reaction is the problem here. I just don't think, you know, Seb was out of control. His rage came down. He was out of control, and he could have very easily damaged his own car. So you can't say there was any sense in this, you know, at all. He could have ended his own race. He could have ended Lewis's race. And yes, it may not have been the most dangerous scenario. They weren't at full racing speed. It wasn't necessarily putting anyone in danger, but it was a stupid move, and it was a move that showed you that he had lost control of his emotions at that moment.
And actually quite petulant there for a 4-time world champion.
Absolutely,
you know, you'd think that he'd got enough experience under his belt not to get flustered by things like this.
Absolutely, it makes no sense at all. And, you know, he will... What really sort of upset me, I guess, in the aftermath of all this was Seb's reaction post-race, and even during the race on the radio, that he, you know, he didn't admit that there was any fault on his part at all. And I don't see how you can... I hope he's watched this back now and probably...
What, you mean the programme, F1 Report?
Absolutely, yeah. I hope he watches the incident back and he sees that he has dealt with that badly, because that doesn't show a good Seb.
OK, we've seen examples of this before. Obviously, Multi-21 and the infamous radio message concerning Charlie Whiting, so he's not learning.
Yeah.
He's not coming out and being apologetic. I remember how rude he was to Rachel when she asked him a question following that incident in Mexico. Doesn't put him in a great light, does it?
No, it doesn't, does it? I mean, you know, as a young racing driver, when, you know, what about the penalty, for example? Because he got a 10-second stop-go. As a racing driver, if you do something like that, would you have expected to be seeing a black flag?
I think I would have expected more, to be honest. But I think as a young driver's point of view, I can see it in the sense of emotion, heat of the moment, you know. I've known it across the board with young drivers to get like that, and the
young drivers,
yeah,
not 4-time world
exactly.
champions.
So it's been common, and the penalty's been extreme as a result. Whereas with Seb, I think you would expect a lot more from him. But it's in a way nice to see from a Vettel fan, and I'm a massive Vettel fan, to see the emotion and how much he really cares about sort of this championship and how much it means to him. Like, it's nice to see that in a way, but I think it would have also been nice to have seen a bit of ownership and afterwards him hold his hands up, because ultimately for a young driver that's what I would respect.
You need strong role models. Some may argue that you need that ruthless arrogance in a way to go about winning a world championship.
You do need both, don't you?
Yeah. Well, Ted Kravitz spoke to Johnny Herbert after the race about the Vettel incident.
Well, let's talk about the two V's, shall we, Johnny? First of all, Max Verstappen, another reliability problem, and yet he sees his teammate win. How's his mood going to be?
Not very good, not very positive. I think it's happened far too much for him, and I think in a situation that he has at the moment, I honestly believe there's going to be a situation where he's going to be looking sort of outside it, because I think he will be frustrated with the situation that he's got at the moment.
Hope not, because, you know, maybe we're seeing Red Bull come on song. OK, and then as we just edge towards car number 5, Sebastian Vettel, it's the other V. Would you, I don't know, when you've made an obvious boo-boo, is it better to come out and admit it, or should you just sort of pretend it didn't happen?
When they're obvious, yes, you bring it out, and that was pretty blatantly obvious. And he seemed to just completely dismiss the second part of that contact happened, and it was just so poorly executed in a way. I don't think he really meant it, to be perfectly honest, but it doesn't really matter. Showing sort of that venom, if you want to call it that, after what had happened. It's a frustration, but you've got to be very, very careful, because these cars are tricky things, even when they're going in a straight line.
Would it have been better if he just said, hey, I'm a racing driver, you know, I've got hot blood, I do these kind of things?
Yes, I think it would have been. I think it would have been a much more simplistic way of dealing with it. Did he deal with it in a simplistic way, in a professional way? No.
OK, thanks, Johnny.
So, Jamie, on the one hand, you're seeing the passion and hunger that he's got for this championship, which you so respect as a Vettel fan. Are we also seeing the pressure get to him slightly? It's the first time he's qualified outside of the top 3, and you could see his desperation to get back up there.
Yeah, I think to a degree. We've seen this with Seb all the way through, and that's why he's a four-time world champion. I think he has got that grit and determination, and every opportunity he's got to seize a win or anything, he'll take it. So I respect that, but I don't think it's the pressure. I think a little bit, if you look at the first safety car restart, he got mugged a little bit by Lewis. So whether he was just that bit desperate to get quite close to him and then all got flustered in the moment, I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to look at. I can't imagine him sort of getting sort of defeated under the pressure at all, and I'm sure he'll bounce back even stronger come the next round. But it's frustrating for me to watch.
What does this do then for the rest of the title fight going forward?
I think it makes it really interesting, first of all, because to have that little bit of grit between the two just adds a little bit of spice. That's great. But I think what you're seeing, you know, we see the two main protagonists as racing drivers. You see a little bit of their personalities now, and that's an added element to this. You know, I can't ever see Lewis Hamilton doing that sort of thing in a race. I don't think that's within his nature. He has other sort of failings, so you know, he goes off the boil for a whole weekend and he sort of goes missing every now and again when there's something going on in his life. So they both react to different things differently, but that's a part of this, and I think that's a really interesting side to the championship. So this is a fascinating season to follow, isn't it?
Well, of course, Hamilton's win was then thwarted by this loose headrest, which it's important to say that Toto Wolff was determined not to lay the blame at anyone's door individually at the team, which is a really significant and important move on his part, wasn't it? We're in this as a team.
Yeah, 100%, and I think that's the case across the board in Mercedes. They sort of look at it as they win together and they lose together. Unfortunately, human error does happen, and it's actually, in a way, quite nice to see. I think F1's so robotic and so sort of perfect almost. Everything happens simultaneously that you don't see the little bits that the mechanics have to do to make that happen and ensure that everything runs smoothly. So when these human errors do slip in, it does make it sort of a bit more natural, and I don't think it's obviously a good thing. Obviously Lewis will be sort of kicking himself about it, well, not kicking himself, kicking the team maybe a bit about it, but yeah, in a way it does show how much sort of effort these teams put into it, because these things can easily happen, and the fact that they don't sort of highlights it when they do, definitely.
That extra jeopardy that you've talked about so much.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. Really good explanation. I think it's perfect. There's so much goes into to being successful in Formula One that you're only successful as a Formula One team if nobody notices what's gone into it. It's only when something like this happens that it highlights it. And yes, there will be somebody at that team who fitted that headrest and it didn't, you know, it came out. But absolutely right, Toto Wolff said, you know, we win and lose as a team. If a driver makes a mistake, the team don't come out and go, you know, he went wide at turn one, it cost us a race. We don't say that.
No, we all do, though.
We all do, but the team doesn't. So the team and the driver, rightly, should never point the blame at an individual, because there's so much pressure for the mechanics as much as there is for the driver in these situations. So.
OK, let's talk about their teammates, Valtteri Bottas and Kimi Räikkönen. Their collision, I mean, pretty incredible to see Valtteri come back from that and salvage second position. Yeah. I mean, to pip poor old Stroll on the line. I say poor old Stroll, he's still got a podium, but that was edgy of seat stuff, wasn't it?
It was great, and yeah, he drove fantastically well after that. I thought the incident was a little bit careless, particularly at you know, at the first opening corners of the race. I thought that's when two experienced drivers should be really giving each other a bit of room. You can't win a race at the first corner, as we all know. So that was a shame. I mean, Kimi was on the receiving end of that. It wasn't his fault. Having said all of that, he did drive incredibly well. This is a circuit that we always said was going to suit Mercedes, so he had a car underneath him that was capable of overtaking down those long straights, and he made the most of it. So a great drive. Yeah,
Valtteri Bottas really proving his worth. It's a critical season for him. He doesn't know what's going to happen at the end of it. He's got uncertainty kind of hanging over him, and you've got the likes of Max Verstappen, you know, probably pretty frustrated at Red Bull at the moment. But he's sort of showing Mercedes that he's not just a good second driver, he's a great all-round driver.
I think he's doing a really good job, to be honest. I think he gets a lot of, or gets a hard time because he's compared to Hamilton, and Hamilton is one of the best, and Hamilton every now and then made Rosberg look stupid every now and then. So for Valtteri to come in first year and sort of lay down the mark and out-qualify him on occasions, get his first race win earlier in the year is great, I think, and I think he's in a place where if he keeps these positive results up, the momentum's going to come with him, and whilst the focus is on the title battle, I think he's going to be in a strong position to pick up more race wins.
Would you have gone up against Lewis Hamilton if you were Valtteri Bottas and you had this option to go to the best team currently in Formula One, but your teammate is Lewis Hamilton? Do you see that as it's make or break time in your career, isn't it? Because you can either fall away and be absolutely blown to pieces, or you can take on the best and have a challenge.
Exactly. It's actually interesting you raise that point, because I would never have thought about the risk. I would always say, oh yeah, of course I would. Why wouldn't I want to be in a championship winning team? But actually the risk could be greater than the reward. And okay, he has picked up race wins, but had he sort of failed to Lewis straight away and really struggled, and I think we did start to see at the very early stages of the season where he wasn't quite competing with Lewis, we did start to think, is this the fall of Valtteri? And I think the fact that he's come back stronger shows that he has got it in him, and whatever the Finn's got behind him, he's obviously made of steel. So I never actually thought of that risk, but definitely.
Yeah, because you're not cautious like him. You'd grab it with both hands. Of course you would. A quick word on your pal Kimi, though. Retired from a race twice. That was unbelievable. And actually, to put a positive spin on it, how impressive of the team to get him back out there.
Yeah, really good, yeah. It was just one of those days that every single thing went wrong, wasn't it, for him? And I mean, it just seems to be the way at the moment, where the bad luck seems to fall to Kimi and to Valtteri within those two teams. So in one way, it's great for the championship, because if it happened to Seb, we wouldn't be talking about any of the stuff we've filled this first half of the show with. So he did a great drive. You know, he did a good job. He did a good job all weekend, actually. Out-qualified Seb, didn't he? So he's on form at the moment. He just needs the results to come his way.
OK, well, that's all we've got time for in part one. Join us after the break as we reflect on a race of firsts. The first podium for Lance Stroll and McLaren's first points of 2017. See you in a bit. Welcome back to the F1 report. Red Bull left Baku victorious following Daniel Ricciardo's first win since Malaysia 2016. But the team could have some explaining to do to their other driver, Max Verstappen, who suffered yet another DNF. We'll get to Daniel's win in just a moment, but firstly to Max, another very disappointing weekend for him. His fourth DNF in 6 races, Mark. Just how annoyed is he going to be?
Really annoyed, really frustrated. I think we said on last week's show that he was getting frustrated, and this was ahead of Baku, because of things like this. You know, he's a talent we're all raving about since he came into F1, and we want to see him, a bit like Fernando Alonso, we want to see him up the front. Can you imagine if Max was in all of those restarts on Sunday afternoon? He would have been spectacular. We know he would. So we're being robbed as F1 fans. He knows that this is a disastrous, I mean, that's a terrible record, 4 out of 6 retirements. So he can't live with that for too long. He's a man who's on a mission to get to the top of F1, and so are the people behind Max Verstappen that have put him there in the first place. So he won't live with this for for too long. He'll be looking around, and he'll be looking at ways whether he can start. There are other opportunities outside of Red Bull. We know that. I know that Red Bull have said he's got a watertight contract, but there's no such thing as a watertight contract. We know that as well. So it's a frustrating time for him.
As a racer, what would you need to hear from the team at this point?
It's hard. I think you always want reassurance, and I think for him, he's been at the team a year now. He's probably beyond the point of stepping on eggshells and being the new boy, and I don't think Max was ever the new boy, to be honest. But yeah, it's really frustrating. I think he's going to be deeply frustrated. It won't ever get him down. We know that. I think every time he comes to a new race after a disappointment the weekend before, he's always on maximum attack, and his qualifying performances have kind of shown that recently. But I think he's going to be putting the pressure on the team, and whether he has been putting the pressure on the team and that's got to them, I don't know, but it doesn't seem fair that it's not going his way and everything seems to be falling the way of Daniel this season.
Well, you say that. I mean, he looked red hot in practice sessions, and you could just say it's a bit of bad luck in the race, out of the team's hands maybe? Yeah,
exactly, and also what we don't see is we don't see all the data, so I'm not saying it could be Max's fault at all, but sometimes there are drivers that influence mechanical issues, and we don't see half of what goes on behind the scenes at Red Bull. We don't see the causes or what could have been the issues. So, there could have been human error by the mechanics. There could have been something that Max did wrong. We don't know. So, there's always a reason for everything. And obviously it's frustrating for us to watch. We want to see Max up there and we want to see him pushing on. But no doubt Red Bull are a top-class team, so they'll get him back up there soon.
And Daniel's smile just got even wider. I mean, that was a great race. He's Jamie's driver of the day. I mean, he did exceptionally well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did really, really well. I mean, they are the team that are there to, sorry to say this, but they're the team that pick up the pieces when the top two, have issues, and that's exactly what he did. And they're not quick enough with their current package. That Renault engine isn't good enough yet. I think everybody knows that, including them. And so they're not capable at most circuits of challenging Ferrari, Mercedes. So they have to have an issue. They have to have a race like that to be able to do it. But even so, as you said earlier, to be able to do that, to be able to get everything right on the day when your opportunity comes, is not an easy challenge for a driver or a team. So, absolute fair play to him and the team.
Some encouraging signs for the team, though, because some performances there to get from 17th after 6 laps up to first.
Absolutely.
You know.
I mean, they've got a similar issue in many ways to McLaren, in that they've got a great team with history of success, and they haven't got a great engine at the moment. And to keep their drivers, talking about Max Verstappen potentially looking elsewhere, Fernando Alonso's the same. If either of those teams are going to keep their star drivers, they need to prove to them that they're going to have a competitive package next year.
Well, an interesting stat from a friend of the show, the ultimate F1 keynote, Will Buxton. He tweeted this: you can split it by team or engine, but Red Bull Racing / Hoyer has done 685 laps, whilst McLaren Honda now 716 in the bag. It's a statistic, Jamie, that might shock a few people.
Yeah, well, I hadn't actually seen that tweet, so that surprised me a bit. But I think reading that as a racing driver, I mean, I'd rather win the race than get more laps, but it's positive signs for McLaren. First points of the season, which is good, and yeah, it's obviously good for them. Maybe if they haven't seen that, it might sort of give them a bit of a morale boost, but yeah, definitely would rather win the race.
Yeah,
I would argue
to come out with that stat, though,
I would argue that it's also easier to do that many laps at a slower pace than it is at full racing speed like Red Bull.
Something of a springboard. I mean, I saw Eric Boulier's interview with Ted after the race, and he certainly wasn't beaming from ear to ear. There's still such a long way to go, isn't there?
Yeah, it's very difficult for a team like McLaren to celebrate scoring 2 points. Yes, it's getting them off the mark, and actually, if they score a few more, it will make a big financial difference to them next year, so it is important, but they can't be celebrating scoring just 2 points. They need, as a team, to be up there challenging for race wins, and until that happens, they won't be happy.
OK, now to Lance Stroll, the youngest ever rookie to score a podium in F1. That was such a fantastic moment for him. His first points in Canada in front of his home crowd, and now a podium. So has he finally silenced his critics?
I hope so. I think he's had a really tough time, and it shows how resilient he is to have sort of taken that much of a brunt from all the critics to sort of come back with results like this. I think personally is very impressive. But yeah, he did a good job in Montreal, got his first points, and I think the momentum has just sort of carried through. He did a good job all weekend, not just the race where, you know, others fell out of bed. He did a good job all the way up. He out-qualified Massa, which was a good job as well. So I think this is the way up for him, and yeah, I'm glad to see it. I think he's talented enough to be there. I know I'll probably get a lot of criticism for saying that, but I think he's good enough to be there, and he just needs time. And he spent a bit of time. I think he had a private test in, I think it was Texas, wasn't it? Yeah. So he spent a bit of time, he's got his head in gear, and I think this is the way up for him. I'm
always so impressed how calm he comes across. He's very mature, isn't he? An old head on young shoulders. He sustained a huge amount of pressure at the end of the race, didn't he?
Well, that was a race of you know, staying out of trouble. If you stay out of trouble, you're going to do well in that sort of race. And for him, that's what this season, or the progression of this season, has had to be about, because he got into so much trouble at the beginning. He's had to focus now on staying out of trouble for races, getting to the end, and gradually building on that. And when you get a race like that, and he managed to do that, stay out of trouble, you know, and withstand that pressure, it was a fantastic result. You'll never see anybody as happy to lose second place just before they cross the finish line as he was on Sunday afternoon.
I know, but so close, so close. What about his teammate? I mean, that was almost a fabulous result for Williams, and then suspension failure affecting his race. Yeah,
gutted to see that for Felipe. I think he would have been in the contention for the win, definitely. But yeah, I think what was nice to see with Felipe is he's a class act, and as soon as he retired, he got straight on the pit wall to watch Lance's podium and sort of cheer him on. So I think that was quite nice to see.
Yeah, says a lot about the team, doesn't it? A quick word on Force India. We talk about them pretty much every F1 report because they are doing so well. A shame for them, though, especially after the disappointment in Canada.
Well, it was a massive shame because they were on for a proper good result here. I think they could have had probably second and third if they continued. They wouldn't. I don't think they'd have won the race because the debris that resulted from their crash caused the red flag that eventually then caused Lewis to have his headrest issue. So I still think Lewis would have won the race, but they were on for a definite, I think, double podium, and that would have been a huge result for the team. So it's a real shame, but you know, this is a team of two drivers who are very equally matched now, and in a car that's mixing it just outside the top few, and these things are going to happen, particularly on a tight circuit like that. So as long as it doesn't happen regularly, I think that's okay. I mean, I don't know if you've ever hit your teammate and how the team responds to that. But
Yeah, is it something they need to sort of nip in the bud now? Do they need to have words so that it doesn't happen again and again?
Yeah, it's nothing I've done before, although
Good.
I've not hit my worst thing you can do. But no, it's something that I don't think it was intentional at all. It was sort of a bit clumsy. Ocon obviously went for the move and it was there to be done, obviously just left not quite enough room on the outside, and yeah, a bit clumsy. No, I don't think there's any malice or intention behind it. I think what happened in Montreal was a completely separate incident. But like you said, they're very evenly matched and they're going to find themselves on the same bit of tarmac more than once. So yeah, it's going to happen, but I'm really enjoying watching it. I rate Ocon one of the highest in the grid, so I want to see him succeeding. I think that Perez is also a very, very good driver, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on.
It really feels a good time to be an F1 fan at the moment, doesn't it? Especially when you consider that the point we alluded to at the start, that could have had 10 different teams in the points. And we're talking about all this fresh talent and everyone chomping at the bit. There's so much to look forward to in 2017. It feels like...
there is, I think it's great. The fact we've got a good battle on track, which is the core of our product in Formula One, is fantastic, but everything around it is also looking great at the moment, isn't it? The new commercial rights holders are changing things all the time, small things, but are making positive differences. So it's a great time to be an F1 fan.
OK, and a great time to be a Jamie Chadwick fan. Where are we going to see you racing next?
I think we're at Spa next, so yeah, looking forward to that. I think we're there in a couple of weeks, so fingers crossed.
That's certainly a good one to be. I hope you know rather than think. Don't turn
Oh no,
up on the
I'm
wrong
really
weekend.
bad. Yeah, I need someone to organise my life for
I'll
me.
be your
And
PM.
yeah, you can
I'll be
if
your
you want.
manager as well.
Yeah,
on
sure.
commission.
Yeah.
Happy days. OK, that's all we've got time for this week. My thanks to Jamie and Mark for joining me. I'll be back in a few days' time as we look at the fallout from Baku to see if it continues. We'll also look ahead to the Austrian Grand Prix. Do join us then. Bye-bye for now.
Enjoy Sky Sports F1 Live on all screens, on the go, and the best bits on demand.